Ever have a seed tray that looks beautiful like this, and then others that look like they just died overnight? So today we'll talk about what that is and what you can do to prevent that. Alright, so why your seedlings essentially die overnight, regardless of how much watering you give it, is because it is encountering what's called dampening off disease. So this is a soil-borne disease caused by fungus. You have to remember your soil, although you can't really see it, is filled with all sorts of different microbes. And given the right conditions, sometimes those conditions favor the growth of things you don't want. So if you have it under my situation where it was in a greenhouse that sometimes gets sun, it's not really good airflow, as you're constantly keeping your soil plugs moist, it gives the right environment for which this fungus can grow. So if you look at, you can't really tell, well, let's see if you can tell, but my finger's green. That top layer is not really soil. There's definitely a green hue to that. So there's a thick layer on top. And so what happens when this encounters, so you put your seeds in the soil, you're constantly watering it because that's what you do when you have seedlings. You think you have to overwater it to just force that germination. Because you're constantly watering it, it doesn't give a chance that top layer to dry out. So this seems pretty dry, this seems pretty moist, and it's quite green on top. And so what happens as seedlings come through the soil, its leaves have to go through that green layer, and as it goes through that green layer, the leaves contact the microbes in that layer. As soon as the microbes get onto the leaves, it is then in another environment of which it can grow. So the fungus essentially causes the plant to die simply because the plant is too young to develop a very extensive vascular system. It pretty much only has one way from water and the roots to the leaves itself. The fungus causes that to clog up, and you essentially have a king toes in your stem between root and the leaves. And what happens? Your leaves just shrivel up and die. So there's really no cure for this. As soon as it happens, you're kind of screwed. So you want to definitely contain the amount of green growth that you see here. It tends to affect the seeds that take a little longer to come out of the soil. So I always see it with peppers, because pepper seeds always take forever for it to germinate in the conditions that I have. Tomatoes, as you can see, they were plenty fine. So it's not that the fungus is not there. You can see it's green here too. It's just simply that the plant could germinate quicker than how much growth was here, and then once it starts developing a larger plant, it has more vascularization inside the stems, and so it's not as affected as a little guy that only has one little lane to water its leaves from its roots. So like I said, there's no cure for it. There are things you can do to prevent it, or at least minimize its impact. So you don't want to water as much. So watering is key to cause germination, but sometimes too much water will be a detriment to the soil growth, in this case the soil growth of the fungus. You want to have nice airflow so it does dry out that top layer. So we do have kind of windows and the door, but when it was really cold, we have the window closed and the door also closed. So we really don't have good airflow when that happens. You can also use dilute hydrogen peroxide to kill off. I don't really like using that because not only will it kill off the fungus, but it'll also kill off any other beneficial microbes that might be in the soil. So I really don't go down that path. And then the other thing is potentially to soak your seeds to cause germination, to be a little quicker before the green stuff really comes on. The green stuff pretty much really gets developed and concentrates about 2 to 3 weeks once I put the plugs in my sort of environment. So it is delayed, but it will happen inevitably. So yes, these things do die, but I am also seeing this year that just because it doesn't mean it's fully dead. So you can actually, so the primary leaves died, and if you can see really closely, those two really green ones are new growth. So I keep the stems in there. Some of them don't grow like these ones, but other ones that have affected, there is some light at the end of the tunnel for these. So when you see your seedlings die in the matter of hours, it's because of the soil conditions and the transfer of microbes from the soil onto the leaves. So you really want to watch how you are seeding, watering, and the conditions in the secondary environment beyond the seedlings to really minimize that sort of growth in the fungus. And if you do that, you'll have a nice seed tray like this.